The wind howled outside Kieran's small habitat, shaking the metal walls and rattling the single window overlooking the icy plains. Kieran, a human engineer who had chosen solitude after years of interstellar conflicts, worked silently on repairing a minor leak in the life support system. He liked the calm of isolation. Machines made sense. They were predictable, unlike people, whose needs and emotions were messy and complicated. On this frozen planet, Kieran preferred simplicity, heat, safety, and the steady hum of machinery. A sudden, sharp knock at the door startled him. It was late, too late for any visitor, and nobody else lived near him. He froze for a moment, wrench in hand, before cautiously approaching the door. The lock disengaged with a soft click, and he swung the door open. Standing there was a figure unlike anything he had ever seen. She was tall, taller than any human he had met, with a slender yet strong frame. Her skin shimmered faintly, almost like liquid silver under the light, and faint bioluminescent streaks traced delicate patterns along her arms. Her cloak was ragged and dusted with frost, but her eyes shone with intelligence and determination. I need help," she said, her voice soft yet firm. There was a strange musical quality to it, a rhythm Kieran couldn't place. He stepped back slightly, unsure whether to trust her. "Who are you? What do you want?" "I am Lyra," she said simply. "I am alone. My children, they need a father." Kieran blinked. He didn't understand at first. "Children? What do you mean?" Lyra's eyes flickered with a strange sorrow. She lifted her hands briefly, revealing small devices she carried that looked like they were designed for survival and care, but none of them were weapons. "I am a widow," she said. "My husband, he is gone. My children are half human, half like me. They are young and they cannot survive here without someone to guide them." Kieran's mind spun. Half human, half alien children, on this frozen planet. The thought was overwhelming. He had lived alone for years, avoiding connection and responsibility, yet here at his door stood a being who needed him in a way he had never imagined. "I don't know if I can help you," he said cautiously. I'm just one man, and I don't even know your species." Lyra's gaze softened and she took a careful step forward. "I do not ask for friendship. I do not ask for love. I ask for survival. My children must live. And if it takes staying close to you, learning from you, being near you, then I will do it." She hesitated for a moment, then added quietly, "I will warm your bed, human, if that helps them survive the cold." Kieran felt a sudden mix of surprise and confusion. He didn't fully understand what she meant, but then he realized it was practical, not romantic. Her species could share warmth directly, a survival method for extreme climates. The idea still made him uneasy, but he recognized the logic. He took a deep breath. "All right. You can stay, but just for now. One night. If this becomes too dangerous or complicated, we'll reconsider." Lyra inclined her head in silent gratitude. She stepped inside, and Kieran noticed the way her body moved with careful precision, as if she had survived countless dangers. She carried a small bundle close to her chest, which Kieran assumed were her children. Once inside, she began to unpack her modest belongings. They were minimal, but every piece seemed purposeful. A few survival tools, nutrient packs, and soft blankets woven from materials that retained heat unusually well. Kieran watched quietly, still unsure how he felt about having her here, but a small, unexpected part of him felt responsible for her safety. Hours passed, and the storm outside grew stronger. Lyra sat silently in a corner, occasionally murmuring soft, melodic phrases that Kieran couldn't understand. The bundle moved slightly, and he realized one of the children was awake. A small hybrid child peeked out with wide, curious eyes. They were fascinating. Tiny wings protruded from their shoulders, and faint streaks of bioluminescent skin mirrored their mother's patterns. The child's gaze met Kieran's, and for a moment the room felt warmer, though the temperature had not changed. There was trust there, unspoken yet profound. Kieran bent down, keeping his movements slow, careful not to frighten the child. "Hey," he said gently. "I'm Kieran. I think I can help you." The child blinked, then reached out a tiny hand. Kieran took it, feeling a faint tingle, not unpleasant, as if a small connection had formed. Lyra watched quietly, nodding slightly. Over the next few hours, Kieran learned more. Lyra's husband had been a respected commander in her civilization, leading missions that humans could only imagine. He had died defending the planet from hostile creatures that thrived in its frozen climate. Since his death, Lyra had struggled to survive with her 3 children. One of them was older, more independent, learning quickly. The other 2 were younger, needing constant care and attention. Kieran realized the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just a simple act of charity. These children's lives depended on him, on his skills, his ingenuity, and his willingness to adapt. And somehow he felt a stir in himself, something long buried, a desire to protect, to care, to guide. That night, as the storm raged outside, Kieran noticed Lyra settling near the small heater. The bioluminescence along her skin flickered softly, and the warmth in the room increased noticeably. He realized she was using her biology to make the space more comfortable for him, not just for her children. The thought humbled him. This was not a stranger asking for help. This was someone willing to sacrifice comfort for the survival of others. Sleep did not come easily. Kieran lay awake, thinking about the strange turn his life had taken. He had chosen isolation to avoid loss and complication, yet here, fate had delivered an impossible responsibility. His mind wandered to the future, teaching these children to survive, protecting them from storms and predators, and perhaps learning from them as much as he taught. The next morning, he awoke to a quiet scene. Lyra had already prepared a small breakfast using nutrient packs and local ingredients, carefully cooked over the habitat's stove. The children were awake, curious and cautious, watching him as if trying to judge whether he was friend or threat. Kieran approached slowly. "Breakfast is ready," he said, "if anyone wants to eat." The older child stepped forward, eyes bright. "I want," they said in broken human language. Lyra smiled softly, correcting gently. "They will learn," she murmured, "all in time." Over the next few days, Kieran began to understand the rhythm of their lives. The children were clever and resourceful, with abilities that reminded him of human ingenuity amplified by alien traits. They could sense changes in the atmosphere, detect hidden dangers, and even communicate with subtle bioluminescent signals that Kieran was slowly learning to interpret. Lyra proved to be an extraordinary teacher as well. She could handle extreme conditions, improvise solutions to complex problems, and manage the children's energy and emotions with remarkable skill. Kieran watched her with growing respect, recognizing that her survival instincts were not just about endurance, they were about teaching and guiding the next generation. One evening, Kieran found himself working on a broken communication panel outside. The wind had knocked it loose, and without repair, they might lose contact with supply ships. Lyra appeared beside him, carrying the youngest child. "You should not risk yourself in this storm," she said, her voice firm but calm. "I can manage," Kieran replied, adjusting a panel. "I know what I'm doing." She studied him for a moment. "Your skills are valuable, human, but your life is more valuable. These children need you alive, not just skilled." He paused, realizing the truth in her words. He had been so focused on the task that he had ignored the danger. Lyra's gaze was steady, commanding, but not threatening. It was the gaze of someone who had seen too much loss to waste another life needlessly. That night, the storm reached its peak. Kieran, exhausted from repairs and constant vigilance, finally allowed himself to rest. Lyra stayed near him, her body radiating warmth, not for comfort but for survival. The children slept quietly, trusting the adult presence in the room. In the silence, Kieran reflected on the strange twists of fate that had brought them together. He had been a solitary human engineer, expecting nothing more than isolation. Now, he was part of something bigger, a small, fragile family struggling to survive on a frozen alien world. The responsibility terrified him, but it also ignited something he had not felt in years: purpose. For the first time, he realized that survival was not just about staying alive. It was about protecting others, teaching them, guiding them, and forming connections that transcended species and worlds. And in the soft glow of Lyra's bioluminescent warmth, he felt the faint, thrilling spark of hope. As the storm howled outside, Kieran understood one truth clearly: this was only the beginning. The journey ahead would test him in ways he could not yet imagine, and the lessons he would learn from Lyra and her children might change not only his life, but the future of human and alien cooperation on this wild, frozen planet. The night stretched on, the cold pressing against the walls, yet inside there was warmth, there was life, and there was a fragile, growing bond that neither human nor alien could have predicted. Kieran closed his eyes, finally surrendering to the sleep that his body so desperately needed. And somewhere deep inside, he felt a quiet, unwavering determination. He would protect them. He would guide them. And together they would survive. The next morning the storm had passed, leaving the frozen landscape glistening under a pale sun. Kieran stepped outside to inspect the habitat's external systems. Ice coated the walls and roof, and snowdrifts blocked some of the vents. The storm had been strong, but the structure had held. It was a relief, but it also reminded him that survival on this planet would never be simple. Lyra followed, carrying the youngest child in her arms while the older two ran ahead, exploring the icy expanse with curiosity. Their hybrid abilities made them more agile than Kieran expected. They leapt over small drifts and darted between frozen ridges, their skin flickering softly as they communicated in tiny bioluminescent bursts. Kieran marveled at their abilities. It was strange and wonderful to see life so different from his own, yet so intelligent and resourceful. "Stay close," he called, though he knew it was only partially necessary. The children were quick learners, but the planet's hazards were real, and one wrong step could be deadly. Lyra smiled faintly. "They know more than you give them credit for," she said. He glanced at her, noticing the strength in her voice. Even after the storm, she remained composed, attentive, and caring. He realized she was not only a survivor but also a teacher. She had managed to keep these children alive alone for years, guiding them through dangers he could barely imagine. Over the next few days, Kieran found himself adjusting to a new rhythm of life. He taught the children basic engineering tasks: how to maintain the habitat's energy systems, how to check for structural weaknesses, and how to gather safe resources from the frozen terrain. The children absorbed these lessons quickly, their hybrid minds processing information far faster than most humans. Lyra watched, quietly guiding where necessary. She corrected mistakes gently, encouraged experimentation, and reminded Kieran that the children's safety always came first. Slowly, a partnership formed between the three species: human, alien, and hybrid, bound by survival and mutual respect. One evening, as the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, Kieran and Lyra were repairing a damaged solar collector. The wind had picked up again, threatening to topple the fragile structure. Kieran adjusted a panel while Lyra held it steady, her bioluminescent skin flickering with exertion. "Careful," she said. "The wind is stronger than it looks. Even small mistakes can cause damage." "I know," Kieran replied, tightening a bolt. He appreciated her presence. She was not just helping physically, but also providing guidance he had no experience with. Her instincts were sharp, her judgment precise. Without her, he might have overlooked the subtle dangers of the planet's environment. Suddenly, a violent gust hit, knocking Kieran off balance. Lyra reacted instantly, grabbing his arm and steadying him. Their eyes met for a moment, and he felt a surge of trust and connection. They were no longer just allies in survival. They were partners, relying on each other's strengths to endure the planet's challenges. Back in the habitat, the children were waiting, shivering slightly despite their natural resilience. Lyra wrapped them in warm blankets and activated small heating pads. The room glowed softly, the warmth radiating through the walls. Kieran watched them, realizing that survival was not just about engineering and strategy. It was about care, warmth, and attention to small needs. The next day, Kieran decided to explore a nearby ice canyon that Lyra had identified as a potential source of water and nutrients. The children insisted on coming along, eager to learn and explore. Lyra accompanied them, and Kieran noticed how she balanced guidance with freedom, allowing the children to test their abilities while keeping them safe. As they approached the canyon, Kieran noticed signs of instability, fissures in the ice, hidden crevices, and thin layers that could collapse under weight. He warned the group to stay back, but the children, driven by curiosity, edged closer. Lyra intervened gently, redirecting them while explaining the dangers. Her patience amazed him. She could have been harsh, commanding obedience, but instead, she taught them caution through understanding and respect. While gathering samples, Kieran spotted a small movement near the canyon's edge, a creature adapted to the frozen environment, resembling a large quadruped with translucent skin. It sniffed the air cautiously, watching them. Kieran held his breath, not wanting to startle it. The creature's presence reminded him that they were never truly alone on this planet. Predators and challenges lurked everywhere, and vigilance was essential. Lyra sensed his tension and placed a hand lightly on his arm. Her touch was grounding. "It watches, but it does not attack." "Not yet," she said. "This planet teaches patience. Every encounter has meaning. Observe, learn, survive." Kieran nodded, feeling the truth of her words. In all his years of engineering and survival, he had never considered patience to be as vital as skill or strength. Here, it was essential. The group returned to the habitat safely, though Kieran spent the evening double-checking all structural supports and energy systems. He realized that survival required more than brute strength or knowledge. It required foresight, adaptability, and collaboration. Lyra and the children had shown him that, and he was learning to respect their instincts as much as his own expertise. As days passed, the bond between Kieran and the children deepened. They followed him eagerly, asking questions, experimenting with small projects, and learning the principles of engineering and survival. Kieran found himself smiling more, laughing at their curiosity and ingenuity. He had chosen isolation to avoid responsibility, yet now he found purpose and satisfaction in guiding these young lives. Lyra watched silently from a distance, her presence reassuring but unobtrusive. She allowed Kieran to step into the role of teacher and protector, while she focused on nurturing and preparing the children emotionally. The hybrid children thrived under this balance, blending human curiosity with alien instincts, becoming confident, capable, and resilient. One night, a more severe threat emerged. The habitat's sensors detected an approaching blizzard, stronger than any they had experienced. Kieran, Lyra, and the children moved quickly to reinforce doors, windows, and energy systems. The wind howled outside, rattling the structure with terrifying force. Snow piled against the walls and the temperature dropped sharply. Inside, the group huddled together, their combined warmth helping them endure the cold. Lyra wrapped the youngest child in her arms, while Kieran checked the energy flow to the heating system. The older children assisted, demonstrating the lessons Kieran had taught them. The storm raged through the night, testing every precaution they had taken. By dawn, the blizzard had passed, leaving the planet transformed. Snowdrifts higher than ever, the landscape altered, and the threat of hidden crevices more dangerous than before. Kieran stepped outside, surveying the aftermath. Despite the devastation, their habitat had survived intact, and all members of their small family were safe. Lyra approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did well," she said softly. "We all did. Survival is not a solitary effort. It is shared. Strength comes from unity." Kieran nodded, feeling the weight and truth of her words. For the first time, he understood that survival was not just a matter of skill. It was a matter of trust, teamwork, and care. He had survived wars and isolation, but this was different. Here, his actions impacted not only his life but the lives of others, and he found meaning in that responsibility. Over the following weeks, life settled into a rhythm. Kieran and Lyra worked together to repair, maintain, and improve the habitat. The children explored, learned, and grew stronger. They faced challenges, harsh weather, minor injuries, and occasional wildlife encounters, but each obstacle reinforced their bond and sharpened their skills. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned deep blue, Kieran stood with Lyra and the children outside. The air was crisp, the silence almost sacred. He looked at the hybrid children, their faces glowing faintly in the dim light, and felt a surge of pride and connection. These lives depended on him, and he had risen to meet that responsibility. Lyra stood beside him, quiet but present. Her gaze swept across the icy expanse, then rested on Kieran. "You have changed," she said. "You have embraced purpose. That is what makes humans remarkable. Your courage, your empathy, your willingness to act, it is why survival with you is possible." Kieran felt a deep, quiet satisfaction. He had spent years avoiding connection, fearing the burden of responsibility, but now he understood that purpose was not a burden, it was a gift. It gave life meaning, and it created bonds that could withstand even the harshest conditions. As night fell, they returned inside, preparing for another long, cold night. The children settled close to the heating pads, Lyra providing warmth and comfort, while Kieran monitored the habitat's systems. The room was quiet, safe, and alive with a sense of unity that transcended species. Kieran lay down for the night, reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. He had expected isolation, predictability, and solitude. Instead, he had found responsibility, challenge, and connection. He had discovered a family not bound by blood, but by trust, courage, and care. Somewhere deep inside, he felt a growing certainty. No matter what challenges this planet or any other threw at them, they would endure together. Humanity's ingenuity, resilience, and compassion had brought him here, and in combination with Lyra's strength and the children's unique abilities, they had formed something remarkable. A new kind of family, forged in hardship and hope. As Kieran drifted into sleep, the hum of the habitat's life support system and the faint glow of Lyra's bioluminescence filled the room. Outside, the frozen world was harsh and unforgiving, but inside there was warmth, life, and a bond that promised survival. And for the first time in years, Kieran felt truly at home.